Alrighty, and we're back with another one, episode 27 of the NC podcast. We have a special guest this episode. Last episode, for episode 26, we had Nick Newport to talk about, he had Nick Newport on to talk about a lot of things related to training, resistance training, strength training, and the gains. How to get the best gains and the most out of every exercise in the gym. But we're going to shift gears for this episode and talk about being a mom and a fit mom at that. Who else other than our very own dietitian, who happens to be an awesome mom herself, Sierra. So welcome to episode 27, and welcome, Sierra, to the NC podcast for your very first time of many ahead. So let's give it up. Sierra, welcome. I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Alec.
Episode 27. That's all it took. And we got you on. Go. You having a good Friday so far?
You bet. Getting things done. Happy to be here recording this, though.
Let's freaking get into it. I'm excited. So today is really going to be a lot about just being a mom and what it takes to get through motherhood while not losing yourself and not giving up on your own health, your own fitness, your own, what makes you feel good and what you can do to give back into yourself, because as a mom, we all know what it is, but not what it is like exactly, right? I'm never going to be in those shoes, but I grew up watching my mom, right? Selfless, but she never really gave back to herself. And she's still working on that at 50 plus years old. So how in your 20s and 30s, when you're first having kiddos, how can you set yourself up for long-term success and give back to yourself a little bit? That's what we're going to dive into today. So welcome, Sierra. You've been an NC coach for how long now?
About 7 months.
7 months as an NC coach, and a dietitian for how long?
Dietitian 3.5 years, and then my daughter is 2.5.
My goodness. So lots of changes in less than half a decade for you.
You bet. Exciting. Yeah.
All growth, all great things. And you've moved recently too, right?
Yep.
So how's the new house?
It's great. We're renting for a little bit just to kind of, seek out the housing market with everything that's going on right now. You
Definitely
bet.
there. Okay. But you have some good space for the little one as well?
Yeah.
In the home gym too?
Yeah, we're starting to feel at home. We've been here about a month and a half back in La Crosse, Wisconsin. So lots to do here, lots of activities to be out and about, involving Blair, obviously. So it's definitely a fond place for many people that live in Wisconsin.
La Crosse. So how far is that from where you were before then, La Crosse?
Only like 45 minutes.
That's not too bad.
Nice and close. Yeah.
How far is that from Chicago?
So we're about 3 hours from Milwaukee.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay. I see.
We're right between Milwaukee and like Minneapolis, the cities and whatnot. So.
Okay. Understood. Okay. Well, I'm excited to dive in. And I think the first things first is going to be just the reality shift of motherhood. Because this is obviously your first too, right? And a lot of women are going to experience this. And I'd like to have you share from your own perspective, from first person, what that has looked like, from going from, a college student to a nutrition professional with a job to then taking care of a little one. So I'd love to kind of identify what that transition for you, the reality of that looked like. So my first question for you, what surprised you most about motherhood in terms of how it changed your routine or relationship with fitness specifically? Like maybe you were at every day or before, and then maybe after delivery, that might have looked a little bit different. And then now 2.5 years. So walk me through some of that. I'll just kind of give it up to you and let you kind of take the reins on that.
Yeah, thank you. So, I definitely love that question. You're exactly right. I think the biggest change in routine was for sure the fact that it wasn't just about me anymore. Like I couldn't lift every day whenever I wanted to for 3 hours. I couldn't just, smack pre-workout left and right. I really had to be intentional about the movement that I was putting my body through. Like while pregnant, I had to eat when I didn't want to, or eat things that I, didn't necessarily enjoy, just so, like, for example, I could increase, nutrient intake for my developing baby. I think another relatable change that I see a lot of my clients going through is needing to just, decrease intensity in the gym. I was definitely like someone who trained for strength. I wanted to squat as much as I could. I just wanted to move weight, but I had to decrease intensity. And that meant instead, I was working on like the Valsalva maneuver and pelvic floor strengthening, that mind muscle connection, which was super scary at first because all I knew was, push till failure. I want big muscles. I want to be strong. So I think it was really scary at first, but I learned that resting and slowing down and truly enjoying the process was just as important as, pushing to failure. Because my day to day changed, through pregnancy and then postpartum. And now, like you said, 2.5 years postpartum, my day to day changed. So my goals had to, definitely shift. So I think I would say the hardest change of them all was the mental shift from, like I said, let's just move some weight, get huge, to let's stay mobile and limber and allow myself um, to feel good so I can take care of my baby, adequately.
Absolutely. Okay. And I think honestly, I know we've been right out the get go. This is all about moms, but I think that alone can be transferred to a lot of fathers as well. Not to
Sure.
take this topic, away from
No, you
from
bet.
moms, but I think there's a lot of dads out there who are in the gym and they don't realize the significant change in that schedule and what that lack of sleep might look like and everything, especially in the very beginning, and how that might affect like, oh, a 6-day training schedule that might just not be realistic. But at the same time, let's not get too mentally defeated to the point of not doing anything at all.
You
So
bet.
like, I guess it's almost like reframing that mindset of like, okay, like I can still do these things. It's just, it might not be at the same frequency or same intensity level, but I'm still going to do it because I know what it does for me and the future of the health of the family and the baby, of course.
Oh,
So
100%.
very, very good perspective there. I think it's a great way to start the conversation too,
Sure.
is that reality shift. So are you getting any feedback from my mic? Okay, we'll make sure.
Mm-mm.
Wonderful. Okay, so thank you for sharing that. I guess because you mentioned the hardest change of them all. Was that just like a flip of the switch? Did it take time to like wrap your head around? Oh, I can't train like that anymore. Or was it like just right away? You're like, I know what to do now.
I think I knew what I had to do, and that was not what I was doing. So, I think it was definitely like, I know you said before in your previous podcast, like self auditing yourself. Are my current habits aligning with what my end goal is?
Mm,
And my end goal was, because I lifted for 5, 6 years before I got pregnant. So it was safe for me to continue training while pregnant, right? It wasn't some new high intense type of movement. So I did that until I really couldn't anymore. Like my hip muscles, my joints, my tendons, all of that was preparing for labor, obviously, right? My body was going through hormonal changes. So, my range of motion was suffering. My recovery wasn't as good. I wasn't sleeping well at night. And all of that, I guess, is what made me realize I had to change something because I couldn't continue growing a baby and getting a big belly in front of me while continuing to, I guess, train like I did pre-baby. So that was, I guess, a really huge reality check for me. So that's kind of when it clicked for me. And I just slowly started doing what felt comfortable.
I like it. Okay. So not right away. It took a moment to kind of work through that transition. Um, Okay. And let me ask you this. This is not necessarily something we had planned to talk about, but I'm just interested, and I know the listeners probably are too, those who aren't necessarily a mom yet, but might be planning. How do you think the regular lifting schedule before getting pregnant impacted your pregnancy journey and the delivery process, labor?
I really like that question. I didn't even think to bring that up. So I appreciate that you
Absolutely.
asked that. So, and that's super relatable. I obviously having like strong tendons and ligaments and literally just strong muscles in general was super helpful, like during the pushing phase, not to get too personal about it, but
Yeah.
an additional layer is like learning how to breathe correctly, using your ribs to expand outward 360 and all of those things, like those breathing techniques that I had to develop during strength training really helped during labor. And it also, I think, helped me recover a lot quicker. I mean, usually they say no physical activity for about 6 weeks. I mean, that doesn't mean you can't walk or anything, right? Like no true strength training, cardio type of movements, but that truly did allow me to recover a lot quicker. And I think it allowed my comeback after postpartum to just snap into shape even quicker for me is because I maintained that healthy physical lifestyle through my pregnancy.
Absolutely. I think, yeah, it's one of the most important things in health and fitness, of course, is resistance training just for strength and not even muscle building, just muscle retaining. Because what that muscle tone can do for you, what you just explained through pregnancy, it makes it simpler. It also, I think, I would argue the muscle that you get from it and the insulin sensitivity that you get from it can help protect against gestational diabetes, right? So, I guess if you feel comfortable, walking me through some of that, do you feel that you had, good blood sugar regulation through pregnancy? We don't have to go into, any deep medical background, but anything that you could, I guess, give the listeners on that front, because we both coach moms and we both, know that they're going to get tested and about halfway through that pregnancy or a little bit after for gestational diabetes. And so even if you have any blood sugar issues in the past, they can still potentially develop. So I guess walk me through what your thoughts are on strength training and how that impacts the fight against gestational diabetes during pregnancy.
Yeah, and I think, not to call you out here, Alec, but that's like a super common misconception that if you're overweight pre-pregnancy, you're going to have gestational diabetes, or if you're thin or you're a strength trainer like myself, you're not going to. I actually failed my 1 hour oral glucose tolerance test and had to do the 3 hour. And I remember I was so heartbroken. Like, I have chills talking about it. But, at that time I was working in diabetes self-management, and it gave me such a beautiful perspective on how disheartening it can feel. Like, it just feels like you failed yourself and your baby because you have gestational diabetes. Passed my 3 hour test, but what it taught me is gestational diabetes is not a blood sugar problem, it's an insulin problem. And every woman's going to develop some type of insulin resistance, and that's the placenta's fault. Now, like you said, because I was a strength trainer, and obviously strength training is going to help decrease blood sugar because we need that sugar to use our muscles, right? So it definitely helped me, I think, not fail the 3 hour test because I was staying active. I was controlling what I could, being physically active, like especially after meals, for example. So you're not failing if you develop gestational diabetes, and there are ways to control it without having to inject insulin. I think everyone jumps to that conclusion, but being physically active is going to be for sure a security blanket regarding like complications of gestational diabetes and just how severe it can get.
Incredible perspective. Yeah. Completely unplanned too. So fantastic work. I love it. Okay. So let's move on a little bit past some of those questions, and let's get back to I guess the reality shift of becoming a mom. So I'm very intrigued by this next one here about yourself. Like, do you feel like I think this is going to be a little bit personal, so just FYI, but do you feel like you have potentially lost a little bit of yourself at the very beginning of all of that, of learning that you're pregnant, learning that you have to take care of someone else too, not just yourself? Do you feel like you lost any parts of yourself at that moment? Again, it's kind of deep, but
Yeah, you bet. And that's what this podcast is about, right? Like,
yeah,
being relatable. And I mean, as I think a lot of these listeners can assume or even relate to, is you bet. Like, being pregnant, there's a lot of beauty to it, but there's a lot of hardships to it. And, you know, it doesn't make you a bad person or a bad mom because you miss or question how you used to be, or you miss how your life used to be. That makes you human. And everyone has those thoughts. So, with that though, I think I also found a lot of my parts of me that I didn't even know existed. So, for example, it's really mentally challenging to back squat double your body weight or dedicate an hour a day to like tracking nutrition. But what's really challenging is choosing not to back squat double your body weight and tracking nutrition. And I choose not to because for the sake of my mental health, but also the health of my baby that was developing inside of me. Like, you have to push yourself to slow down, to rest, to view food more as like fuel and nutrients, not just calories and macros. Not look at food as good or bad, for example. I had to let go of a lot of control that I was so used to having regarding intake and
hmm
exercise because I was just getting too absorbed in making it a perfect day of eating and whatnot. And I knew that stress of high intensity workouts, recovery, right? And then also just being so mentally fixated on hitting my numbers. Now that I was pregnant, it wasn't just about that anymore. It was about
absolutely.
having a healthy pregnancy and developing a baby.
Yeah. And I'm sure, there's also, you were so used to tracking before. I get that part. But then you were probably also used to nothing getting, I don't want to say in the way, nothing altering your
You bet.
appetite or nothing
You bet.
altering your sense of smell or the nausea that can come from that, right? So it can probably be sensing that it's probably very frustrating to plan on tracking something and then you go to eat it and it tastes like terrible, or it was good for the first bite and then the second bite. So with those, this just feels like an added stressor there on top of the stressors already in place. So I feel like, yeah, the either not tracking at all or just very, very, very flexibly doing it just to kind of check in and see where your protein might be at or fiber might be at, just to see. Or other specific, pregnancy related uh, nutrients might be at. So very, very, very interesting perspective. Do you feel you learned a lot about intuitive eating during that time frame of like just kind of going with the flow versus trying to have a plan all the time?
Yes. Like, I won't lie, I definitely come from like a disordered eating past just because I wanted my body to look a specific way. And as a dietitian, I know you know, Alec, that we have a very high prevalence of eating disorders in our profession. And that's because we just, we dissect everything we put in our body because we just know how to. So it was really hard to just stop and check in with myself and say, like, okay, yeah, that chicken makes me want to throw up right now. So don't eat it. But before I have goals to meet, I'm going to eat my chicken like I have the last 3 months, right? So, yes, it was definitely just allowing myself to be okay with not letting the plan go as planned, right? So,
Mhm.
yeah, that was huge. And I think your response to my previous answer just goes to highlight, how good of a coach you are, Alec, that you understand. You're not a woman, you're not a mom, but
Yeah.
you know, you're a good dietitian that you understand that that stuff does impact, client success and how we can or can't really control what we're eating sometimes.
Absolutely. Well, I appreciate that little shout out. Hey, you're awesome. Okay. We've got lots to talk about, so I want to keep it rocking and rolling. But that was fantastic and such a good perspective. So thank you for sharing some of those, deeper topics. Okay. So we talked about a little bit about all or nothing, I guess, but not a whole lot. And that's where I kind of want to take things next. But I guess my question, I guess, is yeah, how did you start rebuilding a routine based off of that transition from only, I guess, having to take care of yourself and maybe, your partner or your significant other, half and half or whatever, household chores and stuff like that. Now that there's another human existence, in your life that you have to be responsible for. How did, I guess, those routines, because obviously in the very beginning, you go from a routine solely focused around your own personal work, fitness, food. How do you layer in that next level is basically what I'm curious about.
Yeah. Okay. I would definitely say my wheels are turning here. I was once told that if you're at all a selfish person, don't have children because it isn't, once you do, I don't care if you want to sleep in or you don't want to go outside in the freezing cold or whatever. You just have to do it. Like, it's not about you anymore.
Yeah.
And as I learned that going through it, like, I didn't know that at first, but as I learned that, I definitely found that I had to set boundaries and find a solid support system. So, like, I commonly hear people say that, family members question their priorities or I think you mentioned this in a few podcasts ago that, like, it's so normal for people to just eat a ton of food at once and, like, have an appetizer and an entree and drinks and dessert. And it's so odd for people to say no to the dessert and eat a balanced plate, right? So, regarding all of that, I had to learn that I had to put boundaries in place, like regarding, I guess, family. So, learning the people that didn't like those boundaries, I think, often reinforced why I had those boundaries in the first place. And you don't owe anyone an explanation regarding like what you're doing or why you're protecting like your time and energy. Whether it's like I was late a lot of times because I was meal prepping. That's important to me to have my week go as best it could go. So I was late sometimes, or we had to say no to family get togethers on Sunday because that's my grocery shop and meal prep day. Like, I brought salad instead of desserts because there's already 10 desserts. Like, all of that to me is just non-negotiable, and it's what I had to do to set myself up for success. Now, that doesn't mean that I missed out on everything. It just means I put those boundaries in place, and if they didn't, understand that, or if they gave me a hard time about it, okay, great, right? I can't control how they react. Um, and then I think the second most important part is finding that support system. So I definitely recognize that not everyone has the same support, and that's okay. But when you do, just acknowledge how powerful that can be. Like, for example, my husband, if it was his rest day and he knew I had like a heavy back squat day, this is like a year postpartum. I love quad day. He knows that. If Blair woke up early, he woke up early and he held the baby and fed the baby and watched her so I could get my workout in because he knew that if I didn't, the day would not go well for any of us.
Yeah,
So it's definitely about having that open communication, like with your partner or whoever it may be, about why workouts matter. And it just, it brought a mutual understanding that we both have goals and how can we support each other to reach those goals.
that's a really good point. Yeah. And my training partner actually has two kiddos. And so I've been able to just kind of witness how they do it. And yeah, like he'll watch both kiddos. She'll go to the gym, have her time, and then he comes home and he's out the door as soon as she comes home. And they have a plan and keep it balanced. But it's all about setting those boundaries and then having that support system in place so that you can continue to live your life, I guess, and do what makes you feel, is going to make you feel like the best mom or just your best self, and then share that with the other person. So this is great.
It's just like, you know, if I could summarize, it would be like you have to redefine what routine means to you. And it's not about getting back to my old schedule or my old intensity. It's about finding what works now. So like starting small with like workouts during nap time, walk with the baby while you're like she's in a baby carrier. It looked different for me, but it's what I could make work now. There's no reason to just, I guess, stay fixated on really trying to get workouts in when it's just not going to work out, right? You have to set yourself up for success and know what's going to work for the time being.
Absolutely. Yep. Fantastic. Okay. Right. Let's see. Okay.
Where you
Wonderful.
want to go
And
with
that was the routine. So, in getting back to the routine, so some boundaries. All right. I think what I want to talk about next is building consistency on top of that. So not just trying to find a groove, but like locking in on it and then finding that mindset shift. So I guess I want to know, how you reestablished after obviously there's going to be a lot of volatility with your schedule and sleep wake cycle and hunger and appetite. I can only imagine how deep that runs, right? Of the impacts of that after, those first couple of weeks postpartum. So I guess how do you redevelop from a nutritional standpoint? Like how do you get back quote unquote online with all those, weekly implementations or integrations of that structure nutritionally with fitness too? How do you redevelop that sense of consistency? And maybe even like when did that finally lock in for you postpartum? Like it might not happen right away. You're relearning so many different ways of living now. So how do you find that consistency again, I guess?
Sure. And like there's a few different points in time that we're discussing here, right? So, I mean, I think one piece of advice, to be frank, is your birth plan is not going to go how you want it to go or how you think it's going to go. So be very careful and give yourself a lot of grace when you're anticipating how your postpartum journey is going to go. Like, yeah, I want to, deliver, but that could mean C-section and, all the things. So it's really going to be a huge mindset shift, like you said. And I think, before it was never about if I'm going to work out, it was always about when am I going to work out. But, treating it as like health isn't optional. It's more like scheduled within my day. But once I had a baby, I learned that adaptability is absolutely vital. Like if your kid has an event or God forbid your kid has like RSV or something, like you're going to have to shift your training schedule. So I don't know if Blair was up all night. Yeah, I could have very well intended to do, you know, heavy lower body, but now it's going to be a rest day because I slept like crap. And why would I even try to, back squat if I know it's not going to go how I want it to go, right? So again, setting yourself up for success, but also being like strategic about it as well. And again, I think just allowing yourself grace and perspective that this is a season of change and motherhood, it's not going to last forever. So like these intense early years of, broken sleep, like this is all going to pass eventually. So if you have to skip a workout or miss a meal, like life goes on. Don't allow yourself to have like a missed lift or one meal define your health. So like you said, like the key is finding and returning to your rhythm and not shaming yourself for, being human and facing these challenges, but just realize that you can be disciplined and you can be compassionate towards yourself. It's just your rhythm's going to look a little bit different day to day and not be probably how you planned it to be.
Absolutely, which is a huge shift to learn when you're so dependent on or used to, I guess, that day to day of not having to make that shift. So I guess, we talked about setting boundaries, I guess, with others a moment ago, but this is almost boundaries within yourself and your own like previous self. Like the mindset that you had then, or the level of consistency that you had then that is now technically your standard. You have to almost set a boundary against that, for yourself, that you're redeveloping or reestablishing a whole new standard. And it's okay that, some workout or some weeks might be, heck, you might get like 2 workouts and they might be, you know, 50% effort and off of terrible sleep. But to me, I think what's most important is not letting that completely deter you from at least trying something and at least staying consistent, knowing that what you just said, it's not forever. And this is the hardest point right now. Let's get through this. That's strength right there. That's the definition of strength. Sharing that. Because, yeah, I mean, at NC, obviously, yeah, we preach structure, but when you become a mom, as soon as you find out you become a mom or that you're going to be a mom, that structure looks completely different right away. Okay, so this is going to get even deeper, so prepare. But I'm very interested in this topic. And so I kind of want to learn a little bit more, because I've heard it from a lot of clients, previous clients, current clients, even the term mom guilt. So tell me more about that from an emotional standpoint, if you feel comfortable doing so. I think, yeah, walk me through that, like the early stages of it. And then if you want to, yeah, let's just have you walk us through that, because I'm very intrigued by that topic. And it almost feels like it's, how do I want to say it? Like it's seeming like, you'd feel guilty for something that you really should not be feeling guilty of. I mean, you're doing a beautiful thing, raising a family, right? So it's like, where does that guilt sneak in at? Very
Yeah.
curious.
Yeah, and I think it still does, and I know a lot of moms and a lot of our clients face that guilt, and again, that just means you care, right? Like, if you're a guilty mom, I mean, you're doing as much as you can to care for that child and do anything that you can to make sure that they have everything they need, otherwise that guilt wouldn't show up. You know, guilt surfaces in a lot of different ways, and I think for me, it was I was saying no to, a lot of like different events or time with friends or crying, honestly. Like I did a lot of crying. And, that was just, I think I had an extreme experience with like, postpartum mood changes and whatnot, which was, I didn't know that like postpartum blues were a thing. If you don't know what that is, anyone listening, like it's very real. So give the new moms in your life an extra hug and the time of day to just like literally let them cry. Like it happens. But still, like with Blair being 2.5, I don't want to go out like for my birthday because I'd rather spend my birthday with her now, and that's okay. But if you do want to go out and, instead of spend the day with your kid, that's okay too. It's just I think it's really stepping back and zooming out to take a look at what your goals are and are your current behaviors allowing you to reach those goals, right? So I want to be a present mom. I want to involve Blair in everything I can. So I find myself now like inviting friends with kids to join me and whatnot. So that kind of helps, combat that guilt and be with my friends, but also be with my child. So I think guilt for me was, like I said, a lot of crying and saying no to different like social events. But I think it really surfaces in many different ways for women.
Absolutely, it does. Yeah. Okay. Thank you again for sharing that. And I guess it makes sense. Like you want to take care of yourself, but how do you shift the mindset there of that time for self care not being necessarily considered as like selfish? Like being a selfish mom because you're taking care of yourself. But technically, to me, that is a selfless one from a different perspective, because it's not that you're doing it out of it like spite of being selfish. It's that you're doing it because you want to feel your best to show up then for the kiddo or the family as a whole unit. If you again feel comfortable, walk me through some of that shift, because that's a big one.
Yeah, yeah, you bet. And, a lot of women in my life are like, go out with your friends. You're going to feel a lot better afterwards. And when I did choose to go out with my friends, I did feel better. Like it felt good to step away from being mom for half a day and step back into being Sierra for half a day. And I always say, like, now I'm a better mom as a working mom. Like when I go to work for the day and Blair goes to daycare, it makes that time that we spend together just that much more special. And I think to relate that to like strength training, nutrition, weightlifting, a healthy lifestyle, all of that is going to be discipline that is rooted like in self-respect. So, like I got up at 3:45, 4 a.m. after many hours of broken sleep, but that's not about punishment. It's about, protecting who I want to be and who I am and where I want to be. And I, exactly like you said, Alec, if I didn't prioritize myself, I knew I couldn't show up at my best for everyone else in my life. So again, that adaptability is going to be essential. And so is just non-negotiable self-care. Like I just knew that that was one of my non-negotiables. I talk about non-negotiables with my clients a lot. And to me, it's not a question of, do I really want to work out today or not? Again, when am I going to work out? Because again, being 2.5 years postpartum, I can control a little bit more about what Blair does and whatnot, but I have to get my workout in. And everyone in my life that's important to me knows that and supports that.
Absolutely. And if they don't, see ya. Yeah. Okay. Amazing. Okay. Let's talk about, this is probably one of my favorite topics, is mental bandwidth, because you are, I don't know what age you had Blair and everything, but you live your whole life having this bandwidth for yourself, this bracket of mental capacity that you are used to, I guess, divvying up between, you know, certain things in daily life for work and school and family and friends and all of that. But how does that shift when you have a kiddo and you become a mom? Like that, it's still the same bandwidth, but how do you work a whole new human into that same capacity, I guess?
You bet. So it's like fitting more into the same amount of time.
Yeah.
Um, And I think, I don't know if you ever heard of like what the mental load is, Alec, but I think,
Yeah.
women inherently just kind of absorb more of it, both regarding like motherhood, but also just like day to day household tasks and chores. So, just to kind of get into it a little bit, like men, their tasks are like one and done, whereas women have like what I've seen called as treadmill tasks. Like, I don't want to get into a gender dispute or anything here, but moms typically are the responsible party for those mundane, boring tasks that cannot go undone and literally repeat every single day. So, like the schedules, like the toilet paper doesn't just naturally restock itself. Somebody has to plan that and get it and put it away, right?
Hmm.
Planning and implementing like the bedtime routine. The baby's sick. That means she needs more fluids, whatever it may be. When's the last time she had a bath? Remembering like she's allergic to this lotion, all the things like we have so many tabs open in our brain, and most of the time just more keep popping up without any closing. So when I became a mom, the list just kept getting longer, and before I knew it, I was having to balance being Sierra, being a mom, being a wife, all of the things. Like you said, somehow it just works out. You just figure it out. It's not easy. I don't have the luxury of having my husband's parents or my parents at all. So, like, we don't have just the grandparent that can just take the kid when we're exhausted or, when we need some additional support. So, we just had to make it work. And that meant, a lot of nights the dishes went undone, or if Matt had to give the baby a bath, at least she got a bath, at least she was wearing clean clothes. I had to let go of the control that she had to be bathed this way and she had to have these pajamas on that had to match. So as a mom, it's really learning to let go of control, and everything doesn't need to be perfect. You just have to kind of reorganize your priorities. And usually the baby's at the top of the list, but
I like what you said about the tabs too, just more popping up without others technically closing. And that's the exact, I think, yeah, a great way to frame it without even being, a parent myself, a great way to frame that bracket of capacity. Yeah, it's integrated. And maybe other things also fall off a little bit. Like, yeah, some of those other things that may have been quote unquote priorities in the past, or something like necessary in the past, may actually not be fully as necessary as you once thought. Like the matching of the pajamas or whatever, that might look like, but as long as she's like fed and sheltered and taken care of, and then we're home, like at the end of the day. So I feel like that's a lot of learning in real time of how to make that, navigate that. So, okay. So now you are 2.5 years postpartum. And you mentioned things look a little bit different. You have a little bit more freedom, I guess. Not full freedom, of course, but like way more than the first full year, I'm sure. So walk me through what that looks like now, I guess, at 2.5 years. Like what does your structure look like now, and the flow of things look like now at this stage?
yeah, I think probably, again, going back to those non-negotiables, like for me, I need to meal prep. I need to plan out my workouts as best I can, obviously, and my steps and whatnot. And as long as I understand that it's going to change, right? Like I need to be flexible, and having a backup plan is going to be important as well. But, I think it's just staying true to my values that I want to live a long, healthy life. And I want Blair to see me living a long, healthy life, and not just say like The way we eat is obviously I'm a dietitian, right? I think that it's very balanced. Obviously, it's very protein forward, and that's all Blair knows. So I know she's gonna grow up just thinking that that's how people eat, not that's my mom's diet. So, I have to approach it, very lightly, and a lot of times I have to like refrain from, getting pissed off that I don't know, I ran out of chicken or something like that. Like again, it's all about I think being adaptable, but my routine now is definitely just hitting my workouts, usually like 5 days a week, hitting my steps every day. It's just that might look different every day.
Yeah. That's wow. Yeah.
I
And oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say I did not know how to answer that question. Sorry, Al.
Hey, that's great. I think that was great. And I think obviously it's probably a lot of continue. I mean, now that you and your partner have had, practice, if you will, 2.5 years of practice, you're probably kind of in a good flow of things. So, and another reminder of like, yeah, this part now, she's 2.5, isn't going to last forever, Uh, so, I think you made a really good point though of the whole nutritional thing. That could be a whole nother topic. I don't want to tangent. This episode could be 4 hours long, but I think you made a really good point there of like not saying again that yeah, that could be a whole different topic. And maybe we have a different episode, honestly,
Sure.
Sarah, on food talk or language within the home around, maybe table talk or whatever, whatever to help facilitate a healthy, longevity based sort of lifestyle with nutrition, the walking and stuff like that, so that it doesn't come across as neurotic or obsessive behavior or anything like that, but it's consistency in what you do most of the time that matters more than anything. Patterns over everything else. But I'm trying to put my, self in Blair's shoes, right? Or any kiddo's shoes of, looking up to mom or looking up to dad and thinking that, oh, this is the way. So yeah, I think that could be potentially our next episode topic. I think that'd be a big hitter. So yeah,
Easily. You bet.
we'll put that
You
on the
can't.
back.
Okay, yeah. You can't be forceful with it.
Yeah.
Again, yeah, like you said, it's just there's a lot that goes into that, and I'm very passionate now that I've had a baby about, framing their thinking that is going to set them up for success and not forcefully implement a ton of food rules at a young age just because I am a dietitian. So again, it's dietitians, it's not we don't just happily eat chicken, rice, and vegetables all day, every day. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's just there's a lot to learn in that, I think, in that realm.
Yeah, well, let's make that happen. Because again, we could probably talk next 45 minutes on that alone. Because I'm a very big, not advocate, but what's the word? I guess believer in that. Like that's literally how you set them up. Like that's all they know. And if it's pushed down their throat, then that's just how they're going to live forever. So let's take a note of that and definitely make another episode on that. But let's talk about some things like some, gym strategies, ways to get into the gym as a mom or favorite like quick meals. Um, as just navigating life on the go as a mom who also has multiple jobs, a home to take care of, et cetera, et cetera. And you may not feel like you have to, elaborate too much on this, but I'd love to see if you have any like staple habits or ways to get in the gym or any structural things for yourself.
I think a lot of this goes beyond just being a mom. It's again back to the basics. Like if you fail to plan, you're planning to fail. So if you don't have like protein on hand all of the time that you're also going to eat, like if you don't like egg whites, don't buy egg whites. So, to me, I got to hit my protein. It's a non-negotiable. I need to set myself up to hit my protein. So having that plan and having protein sources on hand, even if that means like you're getting factor meal delivery service, like I recommend that to my clients that have long work days. It's just the nature of the beast. They don't have time to cook, but their goals are important. So sometimes, you rely on that. I would recommend like offering yourself extra time in the morning when you get up to, maybe plan that your kid could get up early or could wake up with a fever. So give yourself the extra time to deal with the child if they wake up and then get to your workout, for example, instead of just having enough time to work out and now your kid's up and now you're rushing and everyone's in a bad mood and it's just, it snowballs from there.
Hmm.
Same thing with that. Like if you aren't a morning person, like a lot of my clients aren't, don't lift in the morning. So, it's just really about don't think too in depth about it. What works for you is what works for you. And that's what you do.
We have a couple more topics here. that I do want to cover. Let's talk about we kind of talked about the modeling health for the kiddos.
I think it's super important to involve your child in all things nutrition. I know, Alec, you learned that in school, just like all dietitians do, like I did. But again, you have to model for them what a healthy lifestyle looks like. So just like if you're saying to yourself every day, I hate how I look, why would you keep repeating these habits that support you continuing to look how you look? So
Yeah.
if you value living a healthy lifestyle, living a long time, being healthy enough to still play with your kids in your 40s, like it starts now. It starts when they're, Blair's age, 1, 2 years old. Involving them in the grocery shopping, the meal prepping as safe as you can, right, is a really good way to connect while still staying on track. So you're being efficient, but you're also having like a lot of quality connection with your kid. And I think the most important aspect that a lot of us forget about again is that they're always listening. So, they hear when you say to yourself, like, I wish my butt was bigger, or I hate how my stomach looks in this outfit, but use that to your advantage. Like, also watch what we're eating, and they learn from constant repetition. Like, Alec, I'm sure you remember from school, kids, if they refuse a food at like 1 years old, it takes like 15 to 20 introductions for them to say, all right, yeah, I'll try it. Right. So don't give up on that. It takes repetition. And if that's how you live a lifestyle, it's just kind of second nature that you always have a vegetable with a meal, for example. So I think that's my husband and I's balanced approach is we always have a vegetable, a lean protein, and a carbohydrate. And because of that consistency, that's all Blair knows. And for that reason alone, we face very little resistance from Blair. And we commonly receive comments about, how good of an eater she is. That wasn't by accident. That was very
Yeah.
intentional, right? So it definitely takes, intent behind it and a lot of practice. And I know I'm a dietitian, so I'm making it probably seem easier than it is, but
Yeah.
just really align your values and model that to your children.
Yeah. Lots to learn. I've got lots to learn here. Fantastic. All right. I want to know more. So, and it's kind of piggybacking off the last one, but how do we create food freedom in a kiddo like that, in a toddler, if you will? How do we create food freedom, but with the staples of, quote unquote, healthy food, but not deem them as healthy or unhealthy or, bad versus good? Like, how do we start that young?
You bet. And I think a lot of people, right, intuitive eating is newer. Not a lot of people know about it. But as you said, like children are born intuitive eaters. We should not resist that. So it's really important to avoid placing like the typical off limit or unhealthy foods on a pedestal. And, like for example, we give Blair, like a mini cupcake with dinner sometimes. And that's so she can enjoy it without feeling guilty about it, or that she can learn that all foods fit, even foods that aren't as nutritious as others can fit into a healthy nutrition plan. She can have a cupcake without having to earn it type of thing. And sometimes she doesn't even touch the cupcake and she'll finish her entire plate. Another approach that I practice personally is like she loves, dark chocolate, for example. Something I practice then is I unwrap it. So it kind of takes away the novelty of that piece of chocolate, right? The bright, shiny wrapper. So it just kind of takes some of the excitement away. And then finally, I know you kind of asked about like intuitive and, oh goodness, where did it go, Al? There we go. And I know you asked about intuitive and mindful eating before, but we really do trust her natural intuitive eating instincts that she was born with. And we allow her to feel her fullness signals and honor her hunger cues. So if she doesn't want to eat her vegetables and she asks for more pasta, sure, Blair, like that's great. And I've heard a lot of parents like, you have to take a bite of everything or you can't get up, or before you have dessert, or take a no thank you bite. I don't push that because that's introducing resistance. And you can kind of think of it as you are allowing that child to believe that there's external rules that matter more than their internal hunger and fullness signals. And that's, I think, a really heavy statement, but this topic means a lot to me. So I think, the most important aspect is just these special foods, or, the unhealthy foods that a lot of people see them as, don't keep them hidden or a rare occurrence, because we're risking the children believing that there is in fact something special about these foods, and that only increases like their desire for them, right? So by making them always available, I guess it kind of just takes the magic away that comes with them.
You nailed it. That is, yeah, probably my favorite topic of this whole episode
Agree.
because not to downplay all of the stuff we learned about being a mom, but this is huge because like that's literally how she's being wired in real time.
Sure.
And you can change it. Like you literally changed it. You put the chocolate right there with her, and in a portion that might be, 90% her meal and then 10% of that quote unquote fun food or whatever. And it just doesn't seem as much. It's not on a pedestal. It's not this like shiny object or this reward, right? Because I think a lot of people also, you can be rewarded with this if you eat all the
Yes.
veggies, or
Right.
it's that, yeah, that is only giving food the power. And I talk about this all the time in like relationship with food and it having the power over you. And it comes down to stuff like this in the beginning, all the way back to childhood and
Absolutely. Yeah.
toddler. So very good points. I think one more thing I wanted to talk about with that is, yeah, like using food as a reward. So, you get all A's, we can get ice cream, or we can get like these fancy special foods. And it's like, why do we have to, I guess, celebrate? Not that food shouldn't be enjoyed, by any means.
Yeah.
I absolutely love food myself too, of course, if I'm a dietitian, but that can just skew how we are behaving around food and can alter
Hmm.
physical and mental health for the long term. So very good points. Amazing stuff. Yeah. You're literally building generational habits. It's amazing. So let's do this. Let's say if, because we're wrapping up here, if you could, there's got to be a lot of people who are not quite moms yet, but might be expecting soon listening. If you could tell them one thing, and maybe it's more than one, it's okay. Uh, but if you could summarize some things about motherhood that might help a new mom stay consistent and not lose herself, because that's what the whole topic or the whole episode title, what would that be? One thing or a couple, it's fine.
Yeah. I think I'm going to, quote something that is super relatable. And I think a beautiful summary of what we've gone through today is that motherhood is only a chapter, it's not the whole book. And you can honor both roles beautifully. Never stop showing up, even if it doesn't look like the way you imagined. Life is going to throw a lot of curveballs. Just keep doing the things you can do whenever you can. I know something I've learned a lot from actually you, Alec, being one of your dietitians is it's consistency is way more important than perfection. And it's going to be about showing up again and again, even in those small ways, until over time, those small moments are going to add up to that real progress. So, on the days, I guess, where that discipline is low, like look at that beautiful baby you made,
Hmm.
hug them really tight, and just, thank everyone and anyone for the abilities that your body has and give yourself a little grace, wake up the next day and get her done, right? So just
Yeah.
don't allow yourself to say no too many days in a row because, that's going to turn into a habit. So
Yeah.
just be consistent over time. Don't reach for perfection.
Forfeit the all or nothing mindset, which is, one of the segments we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
Uh, Amazing. Well, this is great. I think we can kind of wrap it up there. I love that. I think, let me open it up to this. Is there anything else that you feel you'd like to add to close this out that might help a mom listening or a mom to be?
Yeah, I think just remember that health is never selfish. It's, the foundation of your entire life. And by being adaptable and recognizing that life's going to change and go through different seasons, when you thrive as a person, you're going to thrive as a mother and a wife too. And yeah, Alec, I invite you to kind of add to that as you've worked with moms and women and people who are trying to conceive. Like, if there's anything that you commonly see your clients complaining of or mentioning to you, kind of your outlook as a man.
Yeah. I think it boils down to forfeiting the all or nothing and trusting that patterns are everything. And what you do matter, or what you do most of the time matters most, not what you do all the time. So if you are, I would much rather see you, hit 2 to 3 workouts a week every week than 6 workouts one week and one the next, and then 6 and 1, because that is also, I think, transferring to up here in the brain and creating more of like this. But I think with what makes a good mom or a good father, or, parenthood, is stability and consistency with that for the child, for the family, etc. Not these big swings in well, mom's really, feeling really good this week. She got her 6 workouts in, and then mom's off the charts, with this week because she's down here, right? So like I think forfeiting the all or nothing and getting used to maybe some more rest days. Getting used to maybe we gotta maybe grab Chipotle or we gotta grab something, on the fly to nourish you. So yeah, which can help your own self too, get away from perfection and trust that the next 20, 30, 40, 50, 80 years of your life don't have to be that way for long-term success at the end of the day. And I'm sure if I do become a father at any point in my life that that sentence or that explanation might change a little bit. It might be even deeper, but I think, yeah, that would be my perspective on it. So thank you so much. Appreciate you for being on. This is a great episode. Definitely the longest episode we've done and most complete, but I think this is going to help a lot, a lot. So I can't wait to share it. And hopefully if we can get it published quickly, we can get it out today. So thank you for being here. Any last thoughts or notes?
Just reach out to an NC coach if you feel kind of stuck or like you need, some support navigating this new season in life.
Absolutely. And if you've been listening and you feel like it's helped you, share this with another mom who needs to hear it. We appreciate you for tuning in. Thank you guys for being here for episode 27. We'll catch you at the next one. But until then, take it easy. Thanks so much.